The twin suns hung low over the crimson horizon, casting long shadows across the cracked asphalt that stretched endlessly through Orion District's outskirts. Elias Trent adjusted the manual controls of his bus, feeling the vibration of the old machine beneath his fingers. Most transport lines were automated now, sterile and efficient, but he preferred the whisper of gears, the faint hum of the power cells beneath the floor, the illusion that something in this world still needed him. The passengers had long since vanished from these routes, miners relocated, families evacuated, towns left to the dust storms. Yet the Colony Council insisted he keep driving, once a day, through the empty roads connecting ghost stations that blinked weakly with dying power. He didn't mind the silence. It was predictable, mechanical, unbroken. A man could think out here, with nothing but the sound of the wind scraping against the vehicle's hull. His reflection flickered faintly on the control glass, graying hair, weary eyes, a uniform that hadn't been new in years. He told himself he was content. Then, midway through Route 16, a sound broke the stillness, a faint metallic rattle from the rear compartment. He frowned, glancing at the motion sensors. No alert. No signal. Just a single blip of residual heat, small, fading fast. Probably a loose maintenance panel, he thought, or a wandering desert rodent drawn in by warmth. Still, something about the rhythm of that sound felt wrong. It was too deliberate, like something alive trying not to be noticed. He pulled the bus to a slow halt. Dust swirled up around the wheels as the engines idled, emitting a soft, mechanical heartbeat. The faint rattle stopped the moment he stood. Silence returned, too complete, too aware. Elias walked down the aisle, boots echoing on the metallic floor. The air smelled faintly of ozone and machine oil. Then he heard it again, a soft hiss, almost like steam, followed by a chirping trill that sent a chill crawling up his spine. He froze, listening. The sound came from beneath the passenger seats, near the emergency hatch. He crouched, reached out, and lifted the loose floor panel. Warm air rose up, and something moved in the shadows, glowing faintly gold. At first, Elias thought it was a trick of the lights. The glow shifted and pulsed like liquid fire, bending the shadows into strange shapes. Then a pair of eyes blinked back at him, large, slitted, and impossibly bright. He flinched, his hand instinctively reaching for the emergency baton on his belt, but before he could move further, a sound stopped him. A soft chirp, delicate, uncertain, followed by a smaller echoing call. 3 shapes crawled forward, tiny claws clicking against the metal floor. They were no bigger than house cats, their bodies covered in smooth scales that shimmered between bronze and emerald hues. They regarded him curiously, tilting their heads in perfect unison. One of them unfolded its wings. A delicate network of translucent membranes threaded with faint lines of energy that pulsed like veins of light. Elias felt a wave of heat roll from the hatch, not burning, but alive, as if the air itself recognized their presence. He took a step back, mind spinning through every known species catalogued in the colonial database. Nothing matched. The creatures moved closer, fearless. The smallest one chirped again and pressed its snout against his boot, leaving a faint trace of luminescent dust. When Elias exhaled, the air shimmered slightly, reacting to their breath. His bus's onboard AI flickered awake on the console screen, glitching for the first time in years. The display scrolled nonsense symbols, ancient runes, shapes like wings, codes that didn't belong to any known system. Then, just as suddenly, it stabilized. Elias swallowed hard. "You're not supposed to exist," he murmured. The dragons tilted their heads, as if considering his words. One of them sneezed, a small spark of gold fire leapt out and vanished harmlessly against the seat. He didn't know whether to laugh or panic. He found an old thermal blanket and placed it near the console. The creatures immediately climbed onto it, curling into a small pile of glowing warmth. Outside, the winds began to rise, stirring the red dust into spirals. Far above, something streaked through the clouds, 3 black dots moving in perfect formation. Elias glanced at the radar. no ships scheduled, no flights authorized in this sector. The signal appeared for only a second before vanishing. But deep down, he knew. Whatever those things were up there, they were looking for what he had just found. The bus rolled forward through the red haze, its engines murmuring low as Elias kept one eye on the sky. The radar sweep was clear again, but the memory of those three dark shapes lingered like a splinter in his mind. Inside, the glow from the tiny creatures painted the cabin in shifting gold and blue. They were awake now, exploring the narrow space, tapping at the window glass with delicate claws. Every time he tried to shoo them back to the blanket, they responded with a chorus of chirps so oddly coordinated that it almost sounded like laughter. He tried the comms network again, but the transmission was scrambled. Static, distortion, a faint rhythm pulsing through the interference, like a code. He frowned, replayed it, and realized with unease that the rhythm matched the breathing patterns of the dragons. He muted the signal and sat back, uneasy, as one of them climbed onto the dashboard. Its golden eyes followed the horizon with unnerving focus. When it inhaled, the lights on the bus dimmed slightly. When it exhaled, the engine hummed smoother than ever, as though it was lending its energy to the machine. Elias's world, once made of bolts and dust, was shifting beneath him. He glanced at the smallest creature, now nestled on his lap, and for a strange moment, he felt it, not in words, but in sensation. Warmth, trust, a kind of telepathic comfort that wrapped around his mind like a pulse of sunlight. The link broke when the bus jolted, a sudden tremor rippled through the ground. He braked hard. Ahead, the sky flickered again, lightning, but silent, flashing in rhythmic bursts like signals exchanged across the atmosphere. The dragons reacted instantly, wings twitching, eyes bright with alarm. Elias saw it then, not lightning, but propulsion trails, weaving patterns too precise for weather. He cursed under his breath and rerouted power to manual steering. As he accelerated through the wasteland, a warning flashed across his dashboard. Unauthorized tracking signal detected. The creatures hissed softly and clustered together, their combined glow intensifying until the air shimmered with heat. Elias gripped the controls tighter. Whatever was hunting them had found his trail. The horizon split open with light as the first drone descended through the cloud layer. Sleek, black, and soundless, it hovered above the road like a fragment of night torn loose. Elias tightened his grip on the controls, watching its reflection glide over the windshield. The dragons hissed in unison, their scales flaring brighter, as if warning him. A second drone followed, then a third, forming a perfect triangle. The colony's insignia glowed on their hulls. Corporate Defense Division. He knew what that meant. Someone had traced the anomaly to him. A synthetic voice crackled through the comms. Transport 4A-97, disengage manual control and prepare for inspection. Elias ignored it. The bus's autopilot tried to override his input, flashing red across the console, but he slammed the mechanical bypass lever down. The engines roared in protest as he pushed the old vehicle to its limit. The drones responded instantly, beams of scanning light cutting through the dust around him. He swerved between rocky outcrops, tires grinding against the uneven ground. The dragons reacted as though they understood the threat. The largest one leapt onto the dashboard, spreading its wings. Energy pulsed between the wing membranes, forming a shimmering distortion that rippled outward. The nearest drone's sensors blinked offline, its lights flickering erratically before it spun out of control and crashed into the sand. The others adapted, repositioning with cold precision. One released a pulse wave, an electromagnetic burst that knocked out the bus's auxiliary systems. Elias's ears rang from the surge. The controls flickered, only the engine core remained stable, humming with a strange new resonance. The dragons' bodies were glowing brighter now, feeding energy into the machine itself. The bus responded, metal vibrating, light stabilizing, as if the creatures had become its living circuit. Elias stared in disbelief as the speedometer climbed beyond the limit. Behind them, the surviving drones launched tracking flares that burst into fragments of light. Through the rearview mirror, Elias saw the flames twist and vanish, swallowed by the dragon's heat aura. The creatures had saved him again. But as he crossed into the canyon pass, his sensors detected a larger vessel descending through the stratosphere, something far bigger than a drone, and it was locking on to his coordinates. The canyon walls closed in around him like colossal iron ribs, the sky above burning with streaks of descending fire. The vessel in pursuit was massive, its silhouette blotted out both suns, a fortress of steel and plasma vents. Elias could hear the hum of its engines even through the bus's reinforced hull, a low vibration that rattled his bones. The dragons were restless now, their chirps turning sharp, urgent. The smallest one climbed up his arm and pressed its head against his neck, its body trembling with energy. He didn't understand what they wanted, but he knew one thing: they were leading him somewhere. The road ahead ended at a mountain ridge, jagged and fractured from ancient quakes. He should have turned back, but the dragon's glow intensified, pointing upward, toward the thinning air where the atmosphere shimmered faintly like liquid glass. The scanners detected something impossible, a gravitational anomaly hovering above the ridge, circular, pulsing with blue light. A rift. A wormhole, though none should exist this far from the jump stations. Behind him, the pursuing ship fired its first plasma bolt. The explosion turned the ground into molten glass, sending shockwaves that nearly overturned the bus. Elias gritted his teeth and slammed the throttle. The old vehicle groaned, metal straining, but the dragon's energy flowed through the controls, amplifying every system beyond its design. The dashboard lights merged into one blinding hue, and the entire cabin felt alive, vibrating with a heartbeat not his own. He felt it before he saw it, a surge of warmth that flooded through his hands, his chest, his thoughts. The dragons were inside his mind again, sharing visions, towering spires of crystal worlds, skies filled with winged light, and the echo of a great fall, an exodus from a dying star. He saw their world collapse, flames devouring oceans of silver. Then, silence. The portal grew wider, spiraling with energy that tore at the edges of reality. The ship behind him loomed closer, its cannons glowing. Elias's fear melted into determination. He understood now, they weren't running from destruction. They were guiding him home. He closed his eyes, gripped the controls, and drove the bus straight into the light. The light consumed everything: sound, motion, even thought. When sensation returned, Elias found himself drifting, weightless, inside a void of swirling color. The bus floated in silence, surrounded by a vast nebula that stretched like wings across eternity. The dragons uncurled from their perch, their forms shifting, growing, their bodies expanding until they gleamed like living constellations. The smallest one approached him, eyes radiant with intelligence far beyond his understanding. He felt them inside his mind again, their voices layered and melodic, whispering not in words but in meaning. Gratitude. Farewell. Outside the windshield, fragments of ancient structures drifted, ruins of colossal gateways, remnants of a civilization that had once spanned galaxies. Elias realized this was their origin, the shattered cradle of their kind. The bus's console flickered with alien symbols that arranged themselves into coordinates, then dissolved into starlight. The dragons circled him one last time, their scales releasing bursts of luminous energy that wrapped around the bus. The vibrations deepened until the machine itself seemed to breathe. Then, one by one, they ascended into the nebula, leaving trails of gold that lingered like auroras. The largest turned back, wings folding in a gesture that felt almost human: respect, maybe even love. Elias raised his hand to the glass, unable to speak. The last flash of their light ignited the nebula, transforming it into a radiant storm of color that rippled through the void. Moments later, the bus reappeared above Orion District, descending through the morning haze. The roads were the same, but the silence was different, softer, alive. When he parked at the terminal, the engines purred quietly, humming with a resonance that hadn't existed before. The authorities questioned him, scanned the vehicle, found nothing unusual. To them, it was just another old transport on another empty route. But sometimes, when the suns dipped below the horizon and the air turned still, Elias would catch a shimmer above the roads, 3 streaks of light tracing the sky like playful comets. And in the engine's quiet rhythm, he could still hear faint echoes of their laughter, reminding him that somewhere out there, the universe had remembered his name.